Hey, hi, welcome to Speedify Live. I'm your host today, Brian Pradell, and with me is Kevin Cunningham. He's the lead developer at Speedify. And so this is Speedify Live Office Hours. We are here to answer your questions. Speedify Live is the live stream about live streaming. Yeah, we're here to answer questions about Speedify. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us so you get notified about our stuff, and please start asking questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to get through all of them in the next half hour. So, Kevin, what is new in the app? I know we shipped 12.4.1 this week. Is there anything interesting to talk about in there?
Yeah, so we can talk about just review. So yeah, we released 12.4 a couple weeks ago, and 12.4.1 was a bug fix release. So the major feature in 12.4 was the automatic priorities that we've talked about a few times before in the office hours. But that allows Speedify to look at really what type of internet connection is behind whatever networks you're connected to, and automatically pick the priority that thinks it's right. So for example, if it sees that something's a Wi-Fi hotspot, but it's really your cell phone hotspot, it can detect that it's really a cellular connection and set that to secondary so that it'll use it less. Take an example here. If we look at what we have up here, I have my phone tethered here. So I've got my phone tethered, and that's on Verizon. So see that's detected down here, Verizon Wireless. And Speedify automatically set that to secondary, and then detected we're on Comcast up here as the primary connections. So you can allow Speedify to pick, allow Speedify to choose what it thinks the priority should be. And if you don't like that, you can still override. I can go in here and click on any of these and still set the priority. The new default is automatic, but I could still pick any one of these others and override Speedify's choice and leave it set to whatever I want. So this is a new feature in 12.4. 12.4.1 was really just a lot of bug fixes for different things. I don't think there was too much notable user facing. It was a lot of fixes with different things. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything really noteworthy there, except for fixes behind the scenes. But yeah, what's coming up next? So yeah, we're considering some things for next version. One thing that we're working on is allowing Speedify to automatically reconnect after a certain time if you've disconnected. So we had some people that sometimes they turn off Speedify and they forget about it, and then days later they realize that they left Speedify disconnected and they really wanted it on. So we're going to have an option there that you can tell Speedify to reconnect in a few hours, or reconnect tomorrow or something like that, so that you can let Speedify reconnect for you, so you don't forget about it. Is one of the things that we're working on. And we always have other little fixes and other things that we're working on behind the scenes to make Speedify work better.
All right, sounds great. So Android 13, I know, is releasing soon, and iOS 16, I'm guessing next week they're going to announce when iOS 16 is going to be released to everybody. Is Speedify ready for those? Is there anything?
Yes, I mean, as it is now, I've got Android 13 on my phone, and the existing versions of Speedify work fine. We do have there's some new little things in Android 13 that we're working to support, some different things with notification permissions and other little things. But as it is right now, the Speedify that's in the store will work fine on Android 13. We're just doing some other little tweaks to make it work better with some of those new features.
Good. Yeah, I mean, on the iOS side, I don't know really any reason that a live streamer shouldn't go ahead and update to iOS 16 as soon as it's released. I think I haven't heard any horror stories, and as far as I know, things should be pretty good. It seems like a pretty stable series of betas this year. Marby asks, how do you use the Speedify command line interface? I think that's for you, Kevin.
Yeah. So on Windows and Linux, we have a command line interface, as well as certain versions of our Mac. If you get Mac from the store, we currently don't have from the App Store, we currently don't have the command line interface on it. But if you download the DMG from our website, there is a command line interface for that as well. So we have documentation up on our support site. If you go to support.speedify.com and look for the command line interface, there's a whole bunch of information there, but you can also get the same details if you look wherever Speedify is installed. In the install directory, there's a Speedify CLI PDF, or if you just run the CLI without any commands, it'll give you that same kind of output of what the different commands are. So I did a video on it months ago. One of our first Office Hours live streams, I actually did a video where we walked through and demoed the CLI and how to use it. But yeah, pretty much anything that you can do in the user interface and more, you can do with the command line interface. So you can check what state Speedify's in. You can connect it and disconnect it to particular servers. You can adjust the priorities of different things and change what modes. So yeah, you would go to the command line on Windows. It's in the install directory, C program file Speedify. There's a Speedify CLI executable. You can run that from the command line with whatever arguments. And same thing, user share Speedify on Linux. The Speedify CLI is under there. So yeah, we have documentation out there on how to use it, and yeah, there's documentation included when you install Speedify about how to use that. But yeah, if you have more specific questions, let us know.
All right, and yeah, under the hood, I mean, it's really talking the same API that the UI uses, right? I mean, so it's, right. Yep. I think anything that the UI shows or can do, the CLI, I think should be able to do, right?
Yep. Yeah, anything there, and there's even a few other extra things that we don't expose in the CLI right now that are available in the command line. Same account. Same time Speedify. I think there's a continuation of that. VPN, CPCs in the same network.
Right. So I think Daniel's asking if you can kind of build sort of a private LAN with multiple PCs.
Yeah.
And so I think by default right now, all the clients are isolated. So once you connect to the server, we make sure that clients, these PCs can't talk to each other. They can only go out to the internet. So if you have a dedicated server, we can kind of lift that and let those clients talk to each other. But right now, yeah, Speedify doesn't build a big like private LAN to let a bunch of PCs talk to each other.
Yeah. So yeah, if you do have a dedicated server, you get one, you can reach out to us at support, and we can talk to you about lifting those restrictions, letting the clients talk to each other. But yeah, it's not something exposed by default.
Good luck. Good luck with your assembly web server.
Yeah.
Should be good. All right. Yeah, Quiet Galaxy's asking, would I need more equipment if I wanted to have more than 2 connections? What equipment would I recommend? So really it comes down to what sort of device you have. And so if you are using like Windows PC is probably the easiest to add connections to, because you can pop over to Walmart or Best Buy or wherever and grab a bunch of USB dongles, and all of a sudden your PC has 10 Wi-Fi connections. Like that's pretty easy to do, and most of that stuff is just sort of plug and play on Windows. You plug it in and you're good to go. Adding Ethernet, adding Wi-Fi, adding whatever is really easy on Windows. Also pretty easy on Linux. So if you're capable and you're comfortable in Linux, almost all of those Wi-Fi cards you find and USB, Ethernet dongles and stuff, they should all have pretty stable drivers. You may have to wrestle like Network Manager or whatever a little bit to get things working right, but that should work. Mac is trickier. If you have an Intel-based Mac that's not running the latest software, it's a little easier to add more connections. But even on Mac, like adding more devices over USB tends to be kind of easy as far as like plugging in more phones. That works. And iOS, I think we have a video on YouTube, I think still of an iPad and us hooking up 10 connections to it. Yeah, iPads are pretty crazy. So if you're in a situation where having 4 connections to your iPad would help, you can get this USB 3 camera adapter and go nuts. As many hubs as you want to connect and as many Wi-Fi dongles or Ethernet dongles that you want to hook up. The iPad is actually a pretty capable, pretty cool device as far as that goes. I think there was a question from Ebullient Abundance about, Daniel Tremblay says, cool, dedicated server might be a solution. All right, glad to hear it. Cool. Yeah, Ebullient Abundance wanted to know how we approach QA testing. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different things that we do. So we do have a QA department, manual testers that run through all sorts of testing all the time prior to release. But we also have a whole bunch of automatic testing that happens in the background. Daily we're running thousands of tests just automatically. So yeah, we have, especially as customers write in to us and complain about different problems, we kind of have this whole set of tests that we've built up of testing different scenarios of connections with different speeds and different latencies and packet loss and things like that. And we take some of that as artificial stuff that we've built up of different scenarios, as well as real customer scenarios of, this is kind of the profiles of the connections they have. And we add tests to those to make sure that the Speedify works well. So we do things to test out the bonding and make sure that, connections of different speeds are bonding well. We do all sorts of different tests with the priorities and make sure the priority levels are working correctly. We do failover testing, making one connection fail. And we do all this in this, we do a lot of this within a kind of a virtualized environment where on one machine, we can run all these different Docker containers and have network emulation components between them to control the networks and adjust the speeds and make them fail and do things like that. So we can just kind of have all these different tests running automatically within a contained environment that's not really affected by outside influence and things like that. So we can really control things. So we do a lot of different tests that way. But yeah, we also do lots of, in the field real world testing. We go out and do live streams with Speedify out in the real world, walking around and doing things like that. And that's another great way to test, trying to use it in the ways that the users actually use it. So yeah, we have a whole combination of lots of different things that we do to make sure the Speedify is working well.
All right. Quiet Galaxy didn't think an iPad would be a good solution to multiple connections, but nope, totally works. All right. Is Speedify going to be available on development boards besides the Raspberry Pi?
Yes. Speedify supports a lot of different boards as is. So basically, if you have a board that's either x86 or ARM based, and you can run some sort of Debian based operating system, something like Ubuntu, or you run Raspbian that's Debian based, you can use Speedify on it. So yeah, Speedify is not available on things like routers with OpenWRT because that's a little bit different. But yeah, if you can run a Debian-based Linux on an ARM processor or an x86 processor, Speedify supports it, and we'll run on it. So yeah, we've done articles about things like the Odroid boards that we've used, but there's also lots of other boards out there that will work. We've tested some of them, and there's a bunch that we haven't tested, but there's no reason it shouldn't work.
All right. Yeah, so I guess touching on that, should we talk about some of the complexities of supporting routers?
Sure.
A bit. All right. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, there's a few things that make it tough, and one is just there's a ton of architectures. Like you go through the build route for OpenWRT, and there's, I don't know, it seems like about 80 different architectures for things. So it's a whole lot of builds, it looks like. Yeah, the most of the time it ships with stripped down like C libraries and C++ libraries, if it has C++ libraries at all. I think some of the things we take for granted that you're just going to have a libc and it's going to be, it's going to be GNU on most things like Debian and Fedora and stuff. That sort of goes out the window because they, all of a sudden they ship with Muscle or UC libc or something, and it's like, oh. So what are your thoughts? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think those are the main limitations, and then having the interface of how we set things up. I mean, there's a little bit of work there of being able to nicely manage it through some sort of web interface or something like that, which we currently aren't completely set up for. But yeah, I think we could probably, it's a possibility we could do some subset of some of those architectures for some of the common ones that get used. But yeah, it's just a little bit of work on our end. There's not not that many technical limitations. It's just we need to put work in if becomes a priority for us, which up to this point it hasn't been. But I know we played before with getting it working on some routers and had some limited success. But yeah, being able to package and distribute that for everyone, it just takes some work on our end, I think.
Yeah, I know. Got some devices kicking around here that have, 128 megs of storage and like a gig of memory or something. So they've got enough, enough storage, enough memory, and capable enough CPUs. And so, I think last time we went, we basically statically linked everything, so the C library thing wasn't an issue, and had it working. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if we start supporting, a couple families of devices that seem capable enough and good enough for people that really want to run this on, an embedded router.
Yeah, it also depends, I guess, what performance they're expecting and what the performance of the router is, and whether it does encryption and things like that can have a big impact on the performance. So yeah, you have to see. There might be limitations if it's a weaker powered processor or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, we consider offering the software to run on our own servers. Definitely, I think we used to offer that for a while, and kind of stopped to really focus on what we thought the core offering should be, and that's a really nice solid service with a bunch of public servers everywhere. But with some recent work that we've been doing on the back end, I think we'll definitely start offering to be able to self-host again. So yeah, I would look for that in the future. I think we'll definitely do that. Is it fun to break an app? I guess touching back on the QA stuff.
Sometimes it depends. Not when not the day before you're trying to get a release out, but sometimes it's fun to break things in fun ways, but sometimes it's frustrating.
Yeah, I think it's all right. Troffman says the service is great. Used it for a full month in Galapagos. Wow, awesome. yeah, I believe you that the internet there is awful. It's sort of fun when we try to look at through support or wherever where people are using this thing, and those really remote areas seem to be hotspots because I mean you get 4G and you look at it's like it's 100 kilobit. Okay, well let's see. Can I get 3 of these? If I have 300 kilobits, all of a sudden I could do Google Meet or something. But yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad it's working well for you. AWS pay per hour could be great for self-hosted or part of the dedicated server offering. Definitely, I think it's not uncommon for people to come saying, I have this VPC on AWS with a bunch of stuff, and can I use Speedify to connect to stuff that's in this VPC, where actually running it in AWS would make a ton of sense. And so I could definitely see that too. We used to have an AMI that we could share with people to run the servers, and haven't really offered that in a while, but I could definitely see doing that again.
Yeah, I think the big hurdle there was cost, like the bandwidth costs and things like that can rack up if you're doing a lot of data through it. But I mean,
yes,
if you're
definitely,
if you're doing a lot of stuff within AWS, then maybe it doesn't count. I'm not sure how they count the data there.
Right. Or if you're Troutman trying to combine 128K connections from the Galapagos, I guess the AWS bandwidth costs might not be much, but oh man, slow. Yeah, the slow internet. Once you get a couple, 2 or 3 of them together, then it's actually livable. So I feel you there. Oh man. All right. So yeah, I guess we didn't really talk about it much, but Alex usually hosts this. He is out this afternoon, so he'll be back tomorrow. But he wrote what I thought was a really good post on LinkedIn this week about Speedify Live office hours. So I don't know. Did you get a chance to read it, Kevin?
I did. Yeah, I read it yesterday. So,
so I know I've done the office hours a handful of times. I think you've done it way more than I have. What are your thoughts? I mean, what comes out of office hours that's helpful in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think as Alex said, there's a lot of benefits to it. But yeah, being able to get kind of the real-time help for some people where we can quickly answer their questions. I mean, obviously, every question we can't necessarily answer on the fly. Sometimes we got to direct them to email us or send logs or whatever. But for a lot of people, they can just quickly get an answer to their question and not have to wait for a response through email for a day or whatever. That can definitely be great, or have a little bit of back and forth quickly of some people providing more details. And I think it also helps other people that are watching. Somebody might have a question and you didn't even know Speedify could do a certain thing, or I think it helps other people that might not even have the question to ask that get some information about what Speedify can do for them. So I think it's definitely helpful in that aspect. But yeah, also hearing from people of how they're trying to use Speedify and what problems they're having. I think it's definitely helpful in that aspect too, and in addition to our normal email support. I think it's been valuable. And being able to share, I mean, we also, with each of these sessions, usually try and share something that we've been doing in Speedify, or how to use a certain feature, or new things that are coming. And I think that's definitely helpful for people too, rather than just kind of scrolling through our release notes. You might not get the same feel as if we actually demo and show off some of these new features.
Definitely, yeah. And I think stuff can come in and be added to the app that we don't really add it to the onboarding or anything. And so if you don't notice it, it can be like, oh, really? Does that now? Yeah, I think being able to announce stuff every week is it's pretty good. And definitely, I think it's awesome hearing what people are doing and hearing what suggestions people have. I think it's been really helpful. We get app ideas from the Q&A.
We do sometimes. Yes, we've had people give feature requests or complaints about certain things that we've added of, oh, I wish it worked this way, or give us ideas about things that are definitely helpful. So I think there've been a couple things that have come out of the Q&A where people complained about something or asked about something. We've ended up making the changes in the app. So yeah, that's definitely helpful.
All right. Any downside to statically linking lib standard C++? So there's a few. And I mean, really, if it's all those downsides are usually okay if you can support it, if it means that the app runs. But normally, statically linking to standard libraries is frowned upon because if there's some big kind of, shell shock sort of vulnerability or whatever, and all of a sudden everybody has to patch their libc or something. If things aren't statically linked, then on the OS side, you just have to update the libc package or lib standard C++ package, and then everything else can, everything else is safe then. Where anything that statically links it in needs to grab the new one and, basically issue a new release to fix whatever the bug or the vulnerability is, which can be a big pain. On top of that, it makes the executable size much bigger, and since it needs to bundle all that stuff in there, and that also means that the memory is bigger too, because it has to load all that stuff into memory, and it's not the same libc that the OS already has loaded. So all of a sudden, you might require twice as much memory as you would otherwise. But if the alternative is that app can't run on that device, then you suck it up and you statically link, and that's okay. But yeah, a lot of those embedded like muscle or UC libc, they tend to have really stripped down sets of functionality that the normal standard library might have. And so all of a sudden it comes down to it, and it's like, oh, you can't compare those types of numbers because the UC libc doesn't support it. Like, okay, well, I guess I could write my own function to do that. So it using those embedded standard libraries can sometimes be a pretty deep rabbit hole that might not be worth going down. All right. Coming up on a half hour here, so why don't I roll through what's coming up? So I think tomorrow, Alex is going to be talking to Subway Sean, who's walking across the country fueled by Subway. There you go. And on September 6th, Alex will be talking with Japanese tutor and streamer No Junko Food. And on September 8th, we're going to be doing an IRL bike ride, I think through Philly again. September 13th, we're going to be talking to streamer and baker Irish Kate. And September 15th, we're going to be talking to Scott Ackerman, who is creative director at Speedify. So that should be a good chat. September 22nd, Alex will be talking to glassblower Glassman Cometh. And on September 27th, we're going to have Chris Carson back, who is a professional videographer. And we also have our weekly Q&As. So get your questions ready. And if you don't already, go ahead and follow us. Let's see. Do we have any last questions? Any last parting thoughts, Kevin?
I don't think so. I will just say, if we didn't get to your question, or if you have other questions, you can always email us at support as well and reach out that way, support@speedify.com, and we can get back to you there. So you don't have to wait till next week for the next office hours. I think that's it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will talk to you next week.
All right.